back, everyone. We have an interesting topic today for our video, and George, go ahead and tell. Oh, well, let's.
Why don't we introduce
ourselves
ourselves first?
If this is the first time you've ever seen one of our videos, I'm Christopher Brannon with the Coeur d'Alene Public Library and the Cooperative Information Network.
And I'm George Williams. I'm the Next Search Catalog Coordinator for Northeast Kansas Library System, which is right up here in Kansas.
And what are we talking about today?
So at the last cataloging meeting, there was a question about writing reports to get information from specific positions in some of the coded fields in the MARC record, specifically the zeros, the leader, the 007, the 008, and the 006 are all of these fields where, depending on which character is in a specific position in the field, determines what that field means in some cases. So it's coded data because MARC is a 50-plus-year-old type of database structure. So they used single digit, they had a small amount of space to build the record. So they would say, if position number 6 in this field equals an A, that means it's a language material item. Or if it's a T, it means it's a manuscript. And so depending on what letter is in what position determines a lot of other information about a record. And in order to write reports to determine that information, though, you have to know some extra things about SQL. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
This video is sponsored by koha-US, your place to look for all things Koha. Whether you're just starting out with Koha, or you've been with Koha for a while, koha-US is a great place to find resources, learn new tips and techniques, or connect with other users and libraries. koha-US provides excellent information, both original and curated from around the world, including your favorite terrific Every Other Thursday training videos. You'll also find several special interest groups, or SIGs, to connect with, as well as our general monthly meetings where we gather to talk about the latest Koha news. You should also check out the annual Koha conference, which is held in various locations around the U.S. This year we'll be gathering in Round Rock, Texas. This is a great opportunity to meet with other users face-to-face, and build your Koha network, as well as new friendships. And of course, don't forget about the great presentations. koha-US is also actively involved in the Koha community by contributing towards new developments. If you are interested in contributing towards koha-US funded developments, join the koha-US membership. Your annual membership builds the funds to sponsor new developments in the community. And as a member you also help shape koha-US with your membership votes, as well as receive a discount on the annual conference. You can also contribute towards developments through a direct donation, or by purchasing some great koha-US merchandise through our Threadless account. Visit us at koha-us.org to find out more.
So, okay, not everybody messes with the MARC records. The MARC fields are a little more challenging. There's a little bit more to it to run a report against those fields. I've done it, but I always have to go back to the wiki and look at how things are structured, because different parts of the MARC record are I guess approached in a little bit different ways. There's a little bit of to do with that. So it's not a bad thing to go back and refer to the wiki for these things, because these are a little bit more complicated, but with the guidance of the wiki, it's possible to do, and it does make light work of a very, I don't know, for me, complicated field to sort through. But tell us, just give us a little bit of backstory why this came up. What brought this up to search these fields?
I don't remember exactly why it came up in the cataloging meeting, but I have been doing a bunch of it because we are adding Aspen Discovery in our system soon. And so Aspen relies on a bunch of different things in the MARC record to help determine how it's going to display in Aspen. And so I had been doing a bunch of this, and so I told the person that asked the other question that maybe I would pull up some reports and we would do a video about this so people could see exactly what's going on. So let's do that right now. Let me pull up a report. Oh, look, it's the koha-US website. Fancy that being right there. And oh my gosh, there's a reminder about the conference coming up next month, or a little over next month. It's in August in Round Rock, Texas. But then I'm going to pop over to the wiki, and the Koha wiki is what we discussed last week or last time. And Heather Hernandez showed us how to add content to the wiki, but I'm going to go to the SQL Reports library. And just at the top of the page, there's a link there that goes to query MARC. And there's a bunch of different ways to do it. This one is extract value, select metadata from bibliometadata where biblionumber equals 14. And then it's got, this is the part that gets the data out of MARC, and it's saying data field 952 subfield code A. The method I almost always use is this one, which is select extract value metadata, and then it's got the MARC field here. And this one is extracting the whole 952 because it's got a slash asterisk, so it's pulling all the data out of the 952.
And
this
just a reminder too, at some point in the versions of Koha switched from one form of accessing or storing the MARC records to another. That we're now approaching it in this metadata. So if you're in a much older version of Koha, these won't even work because all of that has changed significantly since that changeover. So
yes,
hopefully you're not in too old of a version of Koha.
Yeah, that would be a pretty old version, because I think that was before, it was certainly before 2018. I think it might have been before 2017 that change happened. It used to be that the MARC data was stored in biblio items. There was a separate field in biblio items that had all the MARC data, but then Koha, the community, moved the bibliographic record data into a table called biblio_metadata. That way it could not just, that way we weren't stuck with MARC. That way Koha could support other forms of records like bibframe or different forms of MARC, or whatever the future might bring in the worlds of bibliographic records. Koha, the community, kind of future-proofed itself by making it possible to do something beyond just MARC. But that's the format for how I get stuff out of the MARC record. Is you do extract value, metadata, and then the data field, and if needed, you add the subfield after that. And so I've actually got a record, or a query that I wrote. So let me just run this really quick, and then we can talk about what it's doing. Okay. So one of the issues I found when we started, working on getting our data ready for Aspen is we have some records that are just not great records. And so I wanted to run some reports, and the first one that I figured out is, so if the leader, the position 06 in the leader, and actually let me pull up a record so I can show this as an example. So here's a record for a video recording in our system. And if we go to the leader, one of the things that can be confusing, especially for new people, is that we're looking for position 6, which is the 7th character in this string of data. So position 6 is the G here. And the reason that it's the 7th character is because it starts counting at 0 instead of counting at 1. So this is position 1, or this is position 0, this is position 1, and so on throughout the field. Koha has this built-in little thing. If we go over here to the right, there's a tag editor. And if your Koha is built correctly, this will show you the different things that are in those positions. So 0 through 4 auto-populate, and they are the size of the bibliographic record. Position number 5 is the record status, whether it's corrected or revised. And position number 6 is the type of record. And position number 6 is important because if this is a G, as it is in this case, then when we look at position at the 008, the different positions in the 008 are going to be based on visual materials rather than language materials. So it's confusing. If you're new to this, this is a bad place to start. This is not the easiest thing to wrap your head around for a lot of new people. So if the position number 006 in the leader is an A, then when we look at the 008, which this is the MARC standard for 008, then these positions in the 008 are going to mean something different in a book, and they're going to mean something different in something that's classified as visual materials. So that position number 6 in the leader has an influence on what subfield, on what field 008 means.
It makes sense in a cataloging aspect of it, but it's a
Yeah.
nightmare for, if it's not done right.
Yeah.
And when we my biggest beef with cataloging from my aspect of it is, we have catalogers that are at different skill levels. They'll bring
Yes.
and they'll bring in a lot of records. We import records, and not everyone goes through the records meticulously, and they touch the stuff that they know has an impact on Koha, but Koha doesn't pay attention to all of these things for its needs. But
Right.
now we're bringing in other players like Aspen, and Aspen says, I'm looking at these things, and it's like, these are the things that we ignored for so long.
Yeah. That's I went to the Aspen conference this spring in Golden, Colorado, and that was one thing that people kept saying to me over and over again, is that Aspen will shine a spotlight on all of your bad cataloging. So that's why I've been trying to do a little bit of work to clean up some of the big things. So this is the record for that video. So the position number 6 here is a G. So when I go to the tag editor for the 008, that means that this tag editor is going to be assuming that I'm working with something that's called visual materials. And I also opened up a Harry Potter record here. This is the Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows record. Hallows record. And here, position number 6 in the leader is an A, which is language material. So when I go to the 008, Koha is going to assume that I'm dealing with a book. And so this whole 008, all of these different positions are going to be, laid out differently than they are for a video, because Koha knows that since there's an A in that position 6 in the leader, that means that this is a different type of 008 than it is for a video recording.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've got here is this report that I ran, count of leader position 6. What it's doing is it's just saying, it's looking at all of my bibliographic records and it's saying, okay, with position number 6, I've got 348,061 records with an A in position number 6. And I've got a list here based on the MARC standard. These are all of the different types of valid characters that could be in position number 6. And so I've written this report, so it's telling me that I've got 739 items where there's nothing in position number 6.
Mm-hmm.
And Z is not a valid character for position number 6. I've got 6 records that have a Z in that position number 6. So the way that I've
And then
got,
who knows of all the valid codes that you have, if those are even correct.
I'm taking it for granted at this point that they're probably correct, because I don't have time to individually go back and review 348,061 records with an A in position 6. But I know, I am guaranteed that the Z, those are going to be wrong, because
Right.
Z is not valid at all. But the way that this report is written, so I'm going to show the SQL code for this. So the way that I included this the valid characters in there is I just went through and I did when substring extract value to get the way that you do these leader positions is you're doing the extract value bibliometadata leader. That's going to get you the leader. And then I'm adding this other piece around it where it says substring. And I'm saying substring is a SQL command that's saying you're going to take this string and I'm going to find position number 7, which is my position number 6, because SQL starts counting at 1, where the MARC record starts counting at 0. So position number 7 in SQL is going to get me position number 6 in MARC. So what this is doing is it's saying, the first part is saying grab the leader, and then substring is saying just get that one character in space number 7, just one character. And if it's an A, then I'm just going to say it's an A. And so I've got, ACD, all of the ones that I know are valid. And then I'm going to say, and if it's not one of those things, if it's not one of those valid ones, then I'm going to get that and I'm going to concatenate it into a string where it says invalid code. So the important part here is for the people that are new to this that want to know how to extract things, that's how I'm doing it, is I'm saying extract the value from bibliometadata and I'm looking for the leader. If I was looking for the 007, I would have a different extract value than leader. And so that's why I'm getting, so by saying, concatenate this with an underline and the text that says invalid code, that's how I'm knowing that these two are invalid, because they're not part of my list of authorized codes here. So the next thing that I've done with this report is I've got a secondary report that I wrote. And so if I click, it's report on my system, it's report 3848. So if I click this button, it's going to run that report for me. And we've talked about how to make those links in other videos. But I'll show it again once this report runs. So basically what this is doing is this button is just opening a new report, and the parameter that I have set in that report as a runtime parameter is the metadata that goes in position number 6. And so what it's doing is it's filling that in with a Z. So if I were to run this report without getting there, it's going to ask me for an input here.
All right.
And so what that button is doing is it's filling in that input when I click it. But now I've got a list, after clicking this report 3848 on this line, this is a list of all of the bibliographic records I have where there is a Z in position number 6 in the leader. And I also added the 006 and the 007 and the 008. And I can tell just by looking at this, that ENG is valid data for the 008, but not in the first 3 positions. It's, the language code, which is much later in that 008 field. But I know that this is a book called Midnight Creed by Alex Kava. For whatever reason, it's got a Z in that position. And so I can click on the link to the title and it will take me there. And then I can go and edit. And if I click on the tag editor, Koha can't, the tag editor can't even interpret that Z properly. It's showing a different result. Because the Koha tag editor,
it just goes to the top of the list.
Yeah, it's just defaulting to the top of the list. So, and I can see the 008 is completely blank except for the ENG. And Koha is doing the same thing here, where it's just blanking essentially everything except for the language code. The language code is correct, but the rest of the 008 is wrong. So, for these things that are in the Z category, that have a leader that's a Z, what I will probably do is I will probably just try and replace this whole record with a better record. I'll probably just do a new search and import a better record for this. This record doesn't look horrible, but I think I'll probably just start from scratch on it. So this report, I can show some more about how to access the fields. So let me actually show the SQL code for this. So here's where I've got, the leader position 6, just like I did in the first report, but here I've got the extract value for the 006, the 007, and the 008. And I've even got an extract value here for the 942C, which is the item type. So I can see what the item type for these different items is. And, it's the same thing. I'm extracting the metadata field from the bibliometadata table. And in these cases, I'm getting the control fields. And in this one, I'm getting the data field 942. And then I'm getting subfield code C, which is where the item type, the bib level item type, is stored. So hopefully this is helpful to the people in the cataloging group that were asking questions about how to do these extracts.
Yeah.
And my goal is once I, to do some more of these kinds of reports to help try and find some of the other issues that we have. 006, or this position 6 in the leader, seemed like a good place to start. I've actually, that report that I showed you, where I've got these results where I do have 739 things with a blank metadata field and 6 with the Z. I've already done a bunch of cleanup. I got rid of the L's.
Yeah.
There were about 20 L's. There were some zeros, there were some 4s. I don't know where this bad data came from, but this is an easy way to track it down and then to figure out which records have that data. And then in some cases, I was just able to, I just went in and changed the data in position number 6. And in other cases, I just download a whole new record
Right.
to make sure I've got a good record.
We talked about this prior to the recording here. You know, it's a lot of data to go through for cleanup. You want to get the blatantly obvious ones that are problematic, but even that can be a little daunting. It might, you know, prove helpful to weed out those, you know, if you have a specific goal, you know, you're cleaning this stuff up, especially for something like for Aspen, might help to weed out some of the things that aren't going to impact something like Aspen. Like, you know, you if you have suppressed records, or, you know, your fast adds for ILLs or whatever,
Right.
you might be able to add some logic to your report to weed those out, so that you can just focus on the things that are impacting, you know, what is seen in Aspen. So that is something, that's another step that somebody might take from this point forward.
Yeah, you know, the issues that I have left to deal with, you know, like the 739 bibliographic records with no metadata in position number 6. If I run that report to see which items those are, a lot of those are going to be ILL records, which are automatically suppressed in our system. I'm more concerned with things like having a T in the position number 6 indicates manuscript, which is handwritten materials. I really doubt that as a consortium of 50 public libraries that we have 609 handwritten pieces of work. And there's some of these others, like I think it's C. Okay, no, it's D, is manuscript music. So I do have 10 items. Yeah, handwritten music. I do have 10 things that say that their leader position 6 is a D. So I probably want to look at those, especially since it's only 10, to see how many of them really are handwritten pieces of music.
Smaller numbers for those more obscure things make sense.
Yeah.
When you have a huge number like the 609 or something,
Right.
that's handwritten, I get that. That's a little odd.
So like this is this is from when I clicked the invalid nothing in position 6. So a lot of these I can see are ILLs. So I could rewrite the report to say, you know, don't show me the ILLs, just show me the books, or the, you know, anything that's not an ILL. And if I click this one that says it's a book, we looked at this before we started recording, but it is an ILL. So the thing there is just that it's got an incorrect bib level item type.
Just out of curiosity, so I see, you know, that there, what would happen if you filtered out that bib type ILL? What would that reduce your results to? Because you have 739 there.
Yeah. Let's see. So I'm adding that as a where field, where subfield C is not. I've been able to take out most of them. Update and run. I don't think I can. let's run it from here. There we go. So then I've only got 35
35?
results.
Hey, we just reduced your work.
So a lot of these look like they say magazine,
Yeah.
book, local hold. Oh, that's a cake pan.
I mean, that just goes to show, you know,
Yeah.
if you think through some of this stuff, you can save yourself a lot of work by filtering out the things that aren't going to impact what you're focusing on. I mean, yeah, you know, maybe at some point you need to consider, you know, okay, your ILLs maybe need to have these records if the, you know, but you're never going to show that stuff. Why would you show your ILLs to the public?
Generally, we don't.
Yeah. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense to go and mess with the stuff that, you know, really is not going to impact things. I mean, granted, at some point, you know, if Koha did something a little bit different on the staff side to where, uh, you know, those records were impacting, yes, you'd want to address that stuff because the staff are going to see all that suppressed stuff. But, you know, for the purpose that you have here, makes sense. Filter that stuff out.
Yeah.
Deal with the stuff that really matters.
Yeah, well, for my first pass was to get rid of the things with the low numbers, which L and 4 were in the 20s. But I'm still working on this, and we're doing so much other stuff with our Aspen implementation that I only work on this every now and then. So, but yeah, this should
So of
help
course
people.
you've edited this report to filter out the ILLs, but now that number in your first report is not going to match
Right.
this report. So if you wanted those to match, you'd have to put the same filter in your first report.
Right. And I'm probably at some point will just take out the ILL filtering for right now because I want to see all those numbers the first time I load it at least. So, and I did put the biblio number in there so that if some of these I can batch edit with MARC Edit, I can do that because MARC Edit is currently, other than individually going in and editing the records in Koha doesn't have a way to batch edit individual positions in those control fields. The Koha record modification tool cannot handle changing one position at a time in those fields, but MARC Edit can. So hopefully this helps the people that had questions about writing reports to get individual positions from those fields or groups of positions from those fields.
I just out of curiosity, can you pull up your main report? For a second? I wanted to ask you a question. Because I know that my approach, yeah, go to the edit of that, or that'll work.
The show?
Yes. So you know, I know that my style of report writing is a little different than others. I look at your cases and I understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and then that last else and how that constructs that part with the invalid code piece in there. I'm curious, can you use an in statement in a when for a case? So like,
I don't know,
because like I would approach this as a little bit different, you know, like I don't enjoy writing cases for each instance that could possibly occur when, you know, it's like, could I create this when statement to be when you know, in this position is in, and then include all of those valid parts, and then use the then, and then just, you know, say, well, then give me that. else do this. And so basically reducing your case down to a couple lines rather than all of these individual lines.
So in,
Then parentheses, and then you have you have these separated by commas with all of those instances.
I think the reason, you know, I don't use in very often, but to me, I guess actually, okay. In A does,
Yeah, comma, and then quote C. Yes.
I can't type and look at the screen at the same time.
I mean, this would be logical to me, but I don't know if this works.
You know, the way that I built that was with Excel. I made a spreadsheet in Excel that just had a list of all the letters. So let's try this. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll just go down to G.
Yeah.
And
Nope. Doesn't look like it likes it.
didn't like it.
These error statements don't always.
So either I did it wrong, which I don't think I did. Oh, yeah, I did. I did it wrong. I left part of it off. I think it's going to work. So yeah, your method there does cut down on the amount of lines in the code. The way that I built that is I just had a list of a list in Excel with the list of all of the valid characters, and then I wrote a formula that turned it all into case statements. Yeah, it looks like it works.
Cool.
So I can modify the code to do that. Maybe we should do a video next time about the in statements in Koha in
The end
SQL.
statements have been very helpful because it's you know it's that you know you and I've used this I've used this with in several places, but it's the difference between several different lines where you're repeating a lot of stuff or you're just repeating the elements that change in the in statement, and that saves you a lot of work, saves you having to look through a lot of information. And so now you're going to go from 10 or 15 lines down to 2, which is really, really nice. So yay.
So well, great tip.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, George, thank you for sharing this report. It's not going to help absolutely everybody because not everybody is, digging into the MARC records like this, especially, if they're, obscure fields that aren't affecting everybody the way it's affecting you, the way it may be affecting me down the road when we go over to Aspen. So, but, maybe you want to look at this stuff because maybe you want to future-proof your data so that if you do go over to Aspen or another discovery system that relies on those fields, this will give you some an opportunity to look at that and had the time to clean it up.
Well, one of the things I always feel bad about is a couple of libraries have us as a Z3950 target. And a lot of our cataloging records, especially the older ones, aren't that great. So, you know, it's always good to make sure if you're going to share your data, it's nice to share good data.
Yeah.
So it's good to clean up your data no matter what, just to make sure that if you're sharing it, that you're sharing something worth sharing.
Right.
So
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you. And we will see everyone again in a couple weeks.
yep, see y'all later.